So I got a great question come through from a guy on YouTube, and it reads, there's a two-part question. This is the second part. And from the business side of things, what kind of financial arrangements do you have to do to be able to afford a studio like that? Maybe you can share pros and cons of taking up loans, finding investors, saving up your own money. Now, I am incredibly fortunate in the sense that when it came to building this studio, we run a very successful business. We had the money there, so we didn't have to do loans, we didn't have to do investors and all that sort of stuff. If you don't have to do it, believe me, don't do it. You do not want a loan. It's no secret that this studio costs around 150,000. When you factor in the room, the speakers, the desk, everything costs money. It's a lot of money. Now, the thing is if you was to take a loan on 150 grand, it's a lot. You know, you're talking countryside kind of up north houses in the UK. You could get a house for that sort of money. If you got a loan on it, you probably end up paying like 230,000, which is a big chunk of money extra. So obviously, you know this about with loans. Majority of people know this. So in the ideal world, you don't get a loan. An investor as well is if you're talking about getting an investor, you know, say for instance, you came to me and said, look, Paul, I've got this great investment opportunity for you, right? Build me an Atmos studio, and then you can have a percentage of everything I earn through that Atmos studio. Okay, right. It's going to cost, let's say 100 if we don't put luxury items in like an S4 and things like that. So say for instance, 100. You get an investor in, and then I go, right, well, you know, you do the service, but I want 60%. If I'm fronting all the money for this studio, I want 60% of it. So then you lose technically 60% of your studio and your business to an investor. Or, you know, there's other people, the glorified loany kind of investor, which, you know, if you don't have to do it, don't do it. Obviously, not everyone can have the money there to be able to do it, but it's gonna be, you know, you got to make sure you make a success of it. If you're getting a loan on something like this, big money, you've got to make sure you make a success of it. And the thing with it is, you know, I am like literally rock solid with work just constant coming in to this studio. So much so we've got to build another one as well to accommodate the workload. And that should be going in around April time this year. We'll get round to actually finishing the build for it. It's very popular, Dolby Atmos. And you will get a lot of people in through the door working with you in Dolby Atmos, a lot more than you would in maybe not a lot more right now as you would in stereo. People still want to work in stereo. Stereo will one day phase out, and we'll end up with just not just Dolby Atmos, but that will be the 95% of people will be on that format. Now, you don't have to spend stupid amounts of money on a big studio like this, like an S4, 38 grand, 39 grand. You do not have to buy one of those. It's a luxury item that is a big format console door controller, basically. Workflow is so much faster using it, but you don't have to have it. You could probably fit a Dolby Atmos studio, very budget one. We're talking budget, very budget Dolby Atmos studio for about 20,000, and that you can do. So I would honestly say try and save for it. It would be the best way to do it. The problem with Dolby Atmos is you can't just buy one thing and then like, right, well, I'm going to buy another thing the next month and then another thing the next month and gradually build it like you would a stereo setup. You'd have everything and then you'd maybe go, right, well, I'll get an analog EQ, an analog compressor, and then you gradually build it all up over time. It's very difficult to do that with Dolby Atmos because it's like the speakers are the Dolby Atmos setup. So you can't just kind of buy a left speaker and then a right speaker and then be like, right, next month I'll buy a center speaker, then I'll buy the back two. You kind of need, in order to be doing Dolby Atmos, you kind of need to build it all into one purchase. Everything needs to be purchased together. So there is that. Yeah, basically, in an ideal world, don't get an investor. Don't get a loan. Only get the loan if you know you are going to be full of work doing it. If you're currently already full of work doing stereo, what you can do is adapt Dolby Atmos into your stereo setup. So you've still got stereo. So you've still got stereo if you can't pick up Dolby Atmos clients. You've still got stereo to work on. And then gradually, maybe next year, over time, you'll gradually get the Dolby Atmos clientele. So to summarize, try not to get a loan. Obviously, we know people will need to get a loan. You don't need to buy a really top-end Dolby Atmos studio. You can spend 20k and get a great sounding studio, albeit not as good, but don't get yourself in debt. The best way to go about it is to adapt your original studio, adapt that into Dolby Atmos, because then you've still got your original studio if you can't get the clientele for Dolby Atmos. For me, I already had the clientele for the Dolby Atmos. It was already, you know, I made that transition. So I built a custom built Dolby Atmos room, all from scratch. So this is just Dolby Atmos room. Also, be wary of investors. Last thing you ever want to do is sign over half your business or even just 10% of your business. It's you always want to control your business, especially if you're a small independent business. Yeah, I mean, that's all the pros and cons that I would say of this. I would 100% recommend going down the route of Dolby Atmos. You will never not have work. That is 100% for sure. We are constantly busy with Dolby Atmos. Go for it, but just be careful because it's a big amount of money to have to spend. Because you know, it's not like just buying 2 speakers left and right. You're buying 15 speakers or 13 speakers, right? So it's 7 times the amount, I think it works out. So there you go. My pros and cons, I guess, to how to afford a studio like this. Just be careful because people who lend money will always want it back.